right, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Professor and Friends. You know how we doing? As I mentioned at the top of 2024, we're gonna be doing this thing all year. It's about education and entertainment. We're trying to bring y'all some new understanding. If you didn't know, hopefully you know after you watch this. As always, my name is my name. It won't never change. You can find me on that YouTube. In fact, I would like for you to find me on YouTube at my name, DeAndre Rudis, Rutues, and subscribe, like, share, and comment something that you learned by watching the video that you did not know before. That way, your boy can go into the algorithm. And this isn't necessarily a video where we're going to attach something. Y'all know we like to either throw out a dollar amount or an item. I got my West Side hoodies again. I still got 2 of those. Somebody won. I reached out to them and they never followed up with me. That ain't my fault, right? So anyway, I got another West Side hoodie for those that want to rock the West Side. But again, we're not going to attach it to this video, so stay tuned for the next one. But for that person that won that and I reached out to you, come on, man. I got your hoodie. I want to drop it off. That being said, anyway, man, we got a great show for you all. As you all know, or you may not know, I was elected in May of 2023 to a position called the District Council. Now, the District Council is a part of an elected body that is sworn to uphold public safety and policing accountability. More on accountability than the public safety, but we have some involvement in the conversation because we want to make sure our communities are safer. Ultimately, hopefully increasing police accountability leads to greater public safety. But I digress. That being stated, at the end of the day, you have 66 new elected officials, 65 if you take myself out of the mix. And I brought one of the brothers on today that is a district counselor, and I'm going to let him take y'all through the gamut of what a district counselor is, what we are supposed to do. Also get to know him a little bit better, maybe his district a little bit better, and everything in between, because this is a very interesting brother, and I thought it'd be a great conversation to have as we embark on this journey for the next 3.5 years or so. Well, 3 at this point, three and some change, y'all, in involving ourselves in public safety and policing accountability. And so with that, I want to bring in my brother here, David Orlikoff, my colleague and my partner, my peer on the District Council and District 14. How you feeling tonight, David?
I'm feeling good. You know, we got 70 degrees in Chicago in February. It's weird, but we always gotta enjoy the nice days, don't we? And thank you. That was a beautiful intro. I'm, as always, proud to be your peer, DeAndre, and we appreciate all the times we get to work together.
Yes,
thanks for having me here. Did you want me to jump in talking about the district councils, a rundown?
No. We got to tee it up.
Okay.
First. Yeah, you
cool.
want to jump right into business. See, I like this guy. He wants to jump right into the business. But
I didn't know if you asked me to say like how they work or something like that.
Oh yeah, no, not yet.
Okay, cool.
So let me tee it up in this way. More or less, let's do this. Let's introduce the folks to David Orlikoff, and let's talk about a little bit about yourself. Let's talk about you. And you know what? I think that would actually help when we do this, because I actually had a question. So I'll pop this question up, and then we can start to go in the direction of the District Council. So we can start like this. Can you tell me about your background and what led you to pursue a career in public service, and specifically as a district counselor?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think there's different parts to answering this, because working to try and improve my community is very important to me, and there's a number of reasons for that, and ways that it's been a part of my life for a long time. But specifically, I've never really wanted to go into public service in the way of being an elected official politician. This was not something that I was really imagining for myself, and jumping ahead to when I made the decision to run, it was only because there were not enough other candidates that I was aware of in the movement to support. So what I did was I came to the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, as well as to Carlos Daniel Rosa, who originally sponsored the ordinance, that became the district councils and community commission for public safety and accountability. But I asked them who's going to run, in our district, that I can get out there and help support. And there were not enough folks ultimately. There were definitely different discussions going on, but for whatever reasons, I became, one of those people. So, before getting involved with that, I was, involved with Defund CPD, and I got over 2,000 signatures just in Logan Square from people who were saying that we should reduce CPD's budget by 75% and reinvest those resources, into the South and West Side, into our schools, and into, affordable and public housing for people. Okay. And into mental health services, as well as after school programs, summer programs, job opportunities, in everything. But that's getting a little ahead.
No. Keep going.
Back to we can get back to all of that. About me a little bit. Person. Oh, nice. You see the.
Yeah,
I'm dog sitting. That's Lady Bird. I've known her almost her whole life, but she's actually not mine. I'm dog sitting her. Okay. Good. I am from Chicago, born and raised in Hyde Park and Kenwood. So the South Side, but also with a lot of privilege on the South Side as well. And some of the things that have always been important to me, include like justice and fairness are pretty like, I get stuck on that. If something's not right, then, I'm not just gonna sort of go along with it, basically. And, and I recognize to a degree that that's also privilege, that people, don't always have the choice of everything to participate in, or, what they have to do. But, I also think about things in a lot of details. And I also want to understand how different things, work and interact together. And I don't accept something, just because somebody says that they're an authority and I should trust them. So, I think there are a lot of problems.
Yeah. Ask questions. And then when you ask that question, ask another question. Fact.
There you go. Right. Yeah. Dang. That's how, right. That's how we start. Yeah. Right. Don't stop asking questions. So, I'm a white man, with some privilege, and I haven't, growing up, I wasn't really targeted by police in the same way that I know that a lot of folks, can be targeted by police. But it's important to me because we're all, we're all on this earth together. And more than that, we're all, in the same communities here and in Chicago together. But, there are a lot of ways that I know that even though the main people suffering are obviously, Black, brown, and indigenous people and poor people, marginalized folks, vulnerable people. I also know that even as a privileged white man, that racism and oppression and, police misconduct, that these things are also harmful to me. And one big reason for that is that, I think that life expectancy has been going down. Today in America, more than half of the people are closer to being homeless, than to being financially stable. 60% of folks are like one paycheck away from missing that mortgage, that rent payment, and not having, anything to fall back on. And that's not normal. That's a big problem. And, we know that a lot of people are struggling. We know there's a lot of problems. And why aren't we able to come together and do something about that? So, racism has become this distraction and this excuse to not attack the root issues of what's going on in our country, and to not come together and actually improve things. We're busy scapegoating and blaming different types of people. That's what, that's what the rich old white men really want. That's what makes them happy, is when they see Black people and brown people fighting in the streets,
So look, you say you grew up in Kenwood and Hyde Park. Did you also complete grammar and high school out that way as well?
Yeah. You want to get into it? I went to preschool at Akiba Schechter, a Jewish school, and then I went to Ancona, a very small, weird Montessori school. But shout out if any of you know it. And then I ended up at the U of C lab school, where I finished middle school and high school.
Listen, it's interesting enough, right? So my daughter was born on the autistic spectrum. And you know, I wanted the world for her. I wanted her to go to U of C lab schools. I just knew I had already crafted this path for my daughter, man. And that's not to say that she may not get there, but again, she is on the autistic spectrum, and right now we have her in multiple therapies to get her to the level where she needs to be to hopefully get to the lab schools. But man, I'm telling, when I say I had a path for, I knew my daughter was gonna become the next Michelle Obama. I ain't saying turning out a president, but powerful in her own right, because we all know Michelle
yeah.
on her own. But I know that path she took. You know what I'm saying? I studied that path a little bit and was like, I want my daughter to be led on that same one. But
at the UFC hospital, the head of community engagement, right? Is that Michelle work there?
No, I was looking at it more for the lab schools, and then
great education. Yeah, right.
Yeah, for the education, and then go to Whitney Young and keep going. Go to Howard, because I went to Howard and didn't finish, so she can go complete daddy's story. Stuff like that, man. That's what I wanted for my child, but life happens.
So, yeah.
Okay, no, that's cool. I just wanted to touch base about that, and so. To that point, then, where did the activism and advocacy start? Was it being around a diversity of people from the community area and seeing all of these things, this mistreatment of Black and brown folks, or was it something else?
Right. So great question. I really got involved with Occupy Chicago, when that started.
We'll talk about what is Occupy Chicago.
Right. Yeah. So, I started with Occupy Wall Street, but what happened really was that Goldman Sachs stole trillions of dollars from American families. Over 60% of Black family wealth was lost, like almost overnight, and like 40% of white and Latino wealth as well. But it was devastating. Black families lost 25 or more years of like wealth gathering. But what happened was a number of things. But the Wall Street banks were corrupt, and they rigged the economy, and they tanked the economy for Main Street, and then they got rewarded for it. They got paid by Congress, by us again. They got our tax money bailed out after they stole our houses. So if I can break this down really quickly, I mean, there was a lot.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
The two things. So the LIBOR scandal. LIBOR is the interbank interest rate, and it's supposed to be a neutral thing. It's supposed to be just an independent, like, this is how much borrowing. This is how much demand for borrowing, and this is how much So it's supposed to be based on the demand for borrowing, like in the previous cycle. It was found that there were cables where they were rigging the interest rates. So the international banks are rigging the interest rate. Our old mayor, Rahm Emanuel. Gosh, okay, now I'm. It's such a complicated web. God, okay. I'll do the background in a second. Here was the highlight though. Goldman Sachs bought a bunch of mortgage-backed securities, which were these adjustable rate mortgages, the ballooning rate mortgages. Okay. They packaged them, and they paid off Credit Suisse. They gave them a few $1 million to give it a AAA rating, and they sold it to Deutsche Bank in Germany because they were in Germany. They didn't know what was going on. Then they bought a bunch of puts, which are Wall Street bets against Deutsche Bank, saying that their stock is going to go down with AIG in the US. So Goldman Sachs bet with AIG that Deutsche Bank was going to go bankrupt because they knew it was going to go bankrupt because
they set it up.
Yes. So that happens. They go bankrupt. At the same time, they do a hostile takeover of Lehman Bros. Because they also were holding some of the mortgage-backed securities, and that came out once Deutsche Bank folded. So then everything blew up. But Goldman Sachs, a lot of the bailout went directly to pay Goldman Sachs. The money to AIG went to pay that put bet. And Goldman Sachs was paid about 4, 5, or 6 times over for all of this, and it was our taxes. So it was a lot of bullshit.
And the unfortunate is that our president that did that at the time was Barry O.
And okay, so the Democrats, Bill Clinton Rahm Emanuel was his campaign finance manager for the re-election, and he knew he was going to have some stuff coming up. He, at the time, broke the campaign finance records. Rahm got him all this money from FIRE, from finance, insurance, investment, real estate, from the banks. In the Great Depression, the last huge financial crash we had, they passed some protections, including FDIC insurance, right? So the federal government guarantees $250,000 of your protected deposits in the bank, so that if the bank goes under, the government pays you. Great. What else did they do? Glass-Steagall. They said, okay, if we're protecting these deposits, we're not protecting any crazy gambling that the bank wants to do, because that was the problem always, the crazy financial gambling. So Glass-Steagall was a wall between the Wall Street casinos and the commercial saving and the customers, the savings, just like a savings account at the bank. And what Bill Clinton did was he tore down that wall. And it was a deal that he made, brokered by Rahm Emanuel, to get money from Lehman Bros and Countrywide so that they could merge, because one of them was a Wall Street casino and one of them was a commercial bank. So for Lehman Bros and Countrywide to merge, Rahm Emanuel got Bill Clinton to cut a deal to break down the wall for, $250 million campaign contributions. So Bill Clinton wins. Later on, Rahm Emanuel, he has a very interesting career. His father was actually a terrorist in the Irgun in Israel that bombed the King David Hotel. So Rahm Emanuel, he started with dance and then moved into international finance. But he did modern dance first in college, and then became a consultant for Goldman Sachs at the same time that he took an appointment from Clinton to work at Freddie Mac, one of the mortgage regulators. And that's illegal, to be paid by Goldman Sachs at the same time that he was working there. He should have been tried for that. But Rahm was actually the one on the job regulating to create the ballooning mortgages, to create the adjustable mortgages, because that didn't used to be allowed. That you can get a mortgage today and the interest rate will be 50%, in 20 years, and we won't tell you about it or whatever. Rahm Emanuel created that. And then also, when he was our mayor, he purchased a bunch of credit default swaps and a bunch of Wall Street bonds that were really bad, and we ended up paying over 300 to 700% on those bonds. And that was Rahm just giving money to his friends directly, paying back the campaign and everything like that. So anyway, so there you go. So yeah, so that's why I was at Occupy Chicago. That's why I was there. To pull it back. That's what it's, so that
was the start. That was the first. Yeah. Okay.
And while I was there, the police have a very strong presence, and they're, harassing people all the time. And also there's groups like the Chicago Alliance Against Racist Political Repression, who are out there with their big banner, showing all the people killed by police, in the last couple of years or whatever. And then also you get to meet some folks, like Mark Clements, this brother who was tortured as a child, falsely imprisoned, and then has been, found innocent and exonerated. So that was kind of the start of it. And then, there's two. There was one case that really, that I found out about and really kind of shook me to my core and really kind of brought me more into the, really solidly into the police accountability and, anti-blackness. I guess I would say. Can I go into that now? While I was in Occupy Chicago, it was a big umbrella, and there were all sorts of people that would come out and try to get support for what they had going on. So there was this woman I met, Militia, and she was like the niece of this man, Howard Morgan. And Howard Morgan was this railroad officer. And one day he was driving home after his shift late at night, and he drove the wrong way on his street to pull into his driveway. So he gets spotted by a patrol car and pulled over, and they call for backup. He lets them know that he has a service weapon, but they don't believe that he's an officer, because he's not CPD, but he's a federal railroad cop. So they end up shooting this man 28 times, and most of that is in the back when he's laying on the pavement. And then they load him into a body bag and then they torch the van, and they start, and all the evidence or whatever's there. He survives. Howard Morgan lives. Yeah. He wakes up out of that body bag, out of that lynching, in front of his street, and then they pull him in front of a court. Now they're going to try him for attempted murder. And he's found. Wait. Yeah.
They were going to try Howard for attempted murder?
Yes. Yeah, none of these officers have injuries. One of them said they had a cut that they said was a bullet graze, but here's what happens. It's proven in court because it's very simple. He has no gunpowder residue. He has not fired a weapon.
Right.
They say he was shooting at us. That's what they say. What the facts show, they shot him 28 times, mostly in the back, and loaded him into a body bag, obviously hoping he was dead. But the reality is he was proven innocent for firing a weapon. So he did not shoot his gun. That was proven in court. And this is crazy. The judge stopped the rest of the charges, the murder charges, and separated them into an additional court case. They retried the murder charges without the firearm assault charge. But they said you cannot use any of your defense for the firearm assault being not guilty to defend yourself from attempted murder charges. So this doesn't make sense, but we have to break it down. So he had trial a second time for attempted murder. They're saying you used your gun to shoot at us, to try to kill us. And his lawyer is not allowed to say it's proven, here's the evidence that he never shot his gun.
Right.
They barred him from saying he didn't use his gun on that night that the prosecution said you used your gun to try to kill these four white cops.
Why is that? Why would he be barred from saying that?
To me, it's worse than double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is, one of the worst crimes in court. That means that the prosecutors don't like the outcome and they just try you again, right? You're not supposed to be able to do that. This is worse than that. This is they're trying you again and you can't defend yourself. They took away his proven innocent evidence. So that was insane. Ultimately, he was commuted by the governor. He was found guilty, right? Because they didn't have the evidence, right? So that crazy. These are people who, made a bad decision, portray. I don't know if they're from the suburbs or what, but 4 young white officers all still on the force. And they just escalated. They're like, well, if we're in this firefight, we got to make sure we put him down. We got to get the body bag. Now we got to torch the evidence. Now we got to, he's alive. Crazy. Now we got to lie. Now we got to get the story straight. Oh, we're losing this part. Well, I don't know how the judge, but so anyway, that's that. So that really, shook me to my core. Yeah. And that was definitely one of the things, but
Here, let me jump in right here and ask a couple questions that was posted earlier.
Sorry. Yeah.
Folks want to know how much of an ally are you? So Mosaic Monk says, do you support cash payment in form of reparations for Black Americans, descendants of freed Negroes?
Yeah, sure. Of course. We could pay for a lot if the government didn't borrow all of the money from the private banks, and then pay interest on it. That's really what's crazy. We gave the banks the ability to create money from nothing to give loans. The government, the Treasury could just print the money without paying interest for it, and then we wouldn't be in debt all the time.
Right.
But obviously, we owe such a great debt. I believe that every society has a duty to look after the most vulnerable people. I have no problem with reparations for all Black people or all ancestors or descendants of slavery, but I think it goes beyond that. I think we all have a duty to take care of everybody who needs it, but definitely there's a debt that's owed in this country for sure. The 40 acres and a mule. If you want that or whatever.
They reneged after Reconstruction. We need that. So Mosaic asks another question: have you ever fought against Black on Black violence and high Black abortion rates?
I'm not totally sure. I I think that I mean, in terms of like when I was fighting against closing the public schools, I think that's, I think fighting for housing, what's going to stop, black on black violence? There's also white on white violence. It's just, we're segregated. We're a segregated nation, and
Right.
people who are desperate, are more at risk for different forms of violence. A lot of white people are violent, but just like it's under the blanket or whatever, or, they're not getting as much of a record in public about it.
Right.
But most of the killers in this country are white people. All of the terrorists are white supremacists, right? Like all the mass shooters, like, let's get real about that. But black, it's definitely a problem, but it's the problem is just, disinvestment. The problem is disenfranchisement, right? Like, we need to be looking at the schools and at access to housing. Like, people have to pay so much to be alive, and no one can afford it. In the 70s, $2 minimum wage paid for your 2-bedroom rent and your groceries and your bills,
Man.
right? And $15 today doesn't pay for jack.
Man, almost can't get a cup of coffee for $15, man. Crazy. So Occupy movement, both Wall Street, then Chicago, and learning more about these issues in policing as it related to Black killings led you to a space where you started to join the defund movement.
And one more thing, which will be very fast, but also there was a ton of repression, that I experienced directly that was around, everything I was organizing and working on, and a lot of my friends. But, being a white person, being very privileged, I'm not normally targeted by the police. But if you do organizing, if you are effective at doing organizing, you will find the police come to you. Mm-hmm. So that definitely happens. And it's a different dynamic. I know that it's not the same thing, but it's definitely, it was real, and it can be intense, the targeting and the harassment. Even that white people can experience.
Okay, so while doing the organizing piece, that was another addition towards your understanding that, police accountability is something that needs to be had. There's too much unchecked power behind the badge, and folks are allowed to just wreak havoc on the community in various ways. So something has to be done. And that something obviously is what led us to becoming elected officials, which is when in 2021, we passed the Empowering Community for Public Safety ordinance here in the city of Chicago, which created the Community Commission and now the District Council. So you yourself sit on the District Council for the 14th District. Can you tell us a little bit about the District Council? What exactly is the Police District Council?
Yeah. Like you said, there's 22 police districts across the city. And for the first time last year, Chicagoans elected 3 representatives in each district, in their own district. And then one of the main things going on right now, we have 3 different roles. There's the chair, sort of administrative help with the meetings. There's community engagement, because that's core to everything we do. And there's the nominator. So currently, the nominators are working on interviewing folks who will become our next CCPSA, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. In a nutshell, the District Council works in between the community and the city. Our job is oversight to make sure that the city is doing what the community needs it to do. However, most of the power, most of the levers of control are held by the CCPSA, the Community Commission. And what is the commission? The commission is 7 members who are first nominated by the elected district councilors and then appointed by the mayor and potentially, confirmed again in city council. So the commission is this other body. We have a temporary commission currently, and they've, done some good things in the first year. And so the district councils, we're supposed to set the roadmap for what is the change that the community, needs to see, and what is evidence-based, what is actually going to give us these outcomes that we're all hurting for. Mm-hmm. But it's the commission that we also put in place that's supposed to act on a lot of that at a higher level of policy.
Absolutely. And so just a quick breakdown of the roles themselves. What exactly is the chair supposed to do? I got the nominators are supposed to make sure that they put the correct individuals in place in terms of the community commission for public safety and accountability. So we know their role is to interview, create application, assess those community folks that are coming to them to want to lead the community commission, and make sure they pick the best community-oriented people to represent the community. And so you said additionally, there's also the chair and a community engagement person. What do those two individuals do?
So the chair, I mean, they've got an interesting job, because these meetings that we have every month, the main thing the district councils are doing, we're required at a minimum to have a public meeting once a month. And that's for the community to come, because everything that we do is supposed to reflect the community. So, and a lot of it is working with the community directly. So the chair has an interesting job, because these meetings are official government meetings, and we're subject to some types of regulations, including the Open Meetings Act. We're subject to the same laws that city council is subject to, just for 3 of us, in every little district. And that has a number of challenges, but the chair also has to create the opportunity for our constituents, for Chicago residents who come to those meetings, to be engaged in those meetings. And that's a fine, tightrope to walk, because on one end, you've got, probably something like Robert's Rules of Order. And on the other end, you want to be able to bring in that discussion and that input from the public. So it's important to have as much input as possible, but you also have to have a structure where it's equal opportunity, where it's not just open to one loud voice, saying whatever they want, and other people not knowing when they're supposed to have the opportunity. So the chair has to both keep us on task, follow the agenda, stay within whatever rules and regulations there are, and also make sure it's a equal opportunity, open environment for a lot of public engagement.
And the community engagement?
Community engagement, get butts in seats, right? That's definitely one thing. Right. So partly making sure that the meetings are accessible, making sure that folks know about them, getting the word out. And then also, I would say, meeting and working with stakeholders and residents outside of the meetings, and definitely building relationships and having that, sort of omnipresent, finger on the pulse, just, being in the community, in the neighborhood, meeting with different folks, and sort of, making connections, being it's basically community organizing, right?
Okay. Got you. Appreciate you. Okay. So I'm going to use that to flow right into the next question. Well, before I get to the next question, first and foremost, you are in the 14th district. So can you tell me where the 14th district is located?
Of course. Oh, I wasn't planning on this, but I've got the maps just with me. But on the south end, we have Division, and then we go up to Belmont. On the west end is Central Park, which is 3600 West, and then the river basically covers it over on the east end. So yeah, there's a little bit even past the expressway. So yeah, the river, the Central Park, and Division. So what is that? That's we have like Bucktown and Wicker Park way down here, and then Humboldt Park, lots of Humboldt Park, and then Logan Square, and up a little bit into Avondale, stuff like that.
Okay. So pretty much a very diverse community area that you all service.
Yeah, for sure.
So to that point, now that'll get me to my next question. So what do you see as the most pressing issues facing your district, and how do you all plan to address them?
Man, that's a good question.
Right? Considering that there's a broad number of issues because you cover such a diverse community area.
Yeah, well, I also wasn't planning. Okay. I mean, I have a very strong goal for this year, which is to end the pretextual traffic stops, that are plaguing certainly my district and the rest of the city. But it's definitely an issue in my district. So
let's talk a little bit about that's
yeah. If you're driving while black, you are 7.8 times more likely to be pulled over in the 14th district than if you're driving while white. And if you are driving while Latino, you are 2.4 times more likely to be pulled over than if you're driving while white. in the 14th district. I've had conversations with leadership in my district, including, you know, commanders and captains who were very open, you know, about this. Both that, you know, they are intentionally doing sort of as many stops as they can, or they feel like, and then also that given an equal, there was a captain who spoke with me very candidly and said, yeah, if there is a white driver and a black driver in the same situation, I think it's justified to target the black driver. And he had a crazy reason. He said, you know, because of the racial makeup of the neighborhood, I feel like
that's
certain drivers don't belong.
Yeah,
but
that's not a
what
place.
does it mean when we're saying that black people don't belong in certain places? I mean, you know, that's crazy, right? But the fact is, it doesn't work. So, right, what happened in 2017? You know, a lot has been going on. Look, Laquan McDonald, right? There was a cover up, and then the federal government had to come in and say, this is too crazy. We have the consent decree. We have, you know, this independent monitor. But the consent decree basically says that the Chicago Police Department systemically is unconstitutional. You know, black people's rights are not being protected. Everybody's rights are not being protected in a number of ways, and we gotta fix this. So that's still ongoing. The total completion rate for that is less than 3%. The partial rate of beginning is like 60% or something, but the completion rate is 2%. So, and that's, you know, 6 years. So we've got a lot of work to do. 7 years later, that's what we're here for. But last year in the 14th District Council, we passed a resolution calling for the CCPSA to take action to end pretextual traffic stops. So that, you know, that's definitely a priority for our district and something that I'm, you know, going to work a lot on this year. Just a little bit about that. So yeah, in 2017, the CPD was told to stop and frisk. We probably all remember stop and frisk. And there was a lot of attention to it when some folks, you know, were killed, like, you know, in New York and other places based on that. But when CPD stopped these, you know, just targeted harassment of black people on the street, they replaced it immediately with more car stops. And we saw 2 million traffic. We've had 2 million traffic stops just in the last few years. And there's less than, again, a 2% response rate for anything, for finding, you know, drugs or a gun or something. In less than 1/4% of cases, it's even less than that. You know, do they find a gun? It's minuscule. But also, just because someone doesn't have an active concealed carry card, a lot of these folks even had FOID cards, but, you know, they weren't current on the concealed carry. Just because they have it, you know, for protection or something, doesn't even mean that they prevented a crime or that this is helping to stop robberies. You know, there's no data whatsoever that, and I've asked the police, I've asked everybody, I asked my commander, have you ever had a traffic stop that has helped you to address one of these crimes that our community is concerned about? Have your stops helped to prevent or to address or apprehend any of the right? Have the stops helped you find stolen cars used in serial robberies? That's what people in the 14th are having problems with, right? So and no, not even a single anecdote. So that's a problem, but we see that in the data. It's an intentional policy. They've chosen to do this, and at the same time that they're choosing to harass people for no good reason or result, they're ignoring 911 calls. That's the other thing that everybody cares about. When people make a 911 call, especially a priority call, especially if there's been violence or, you know, gunshots, they want a response, and they want the officer to talk to them, and they want to know that the police care what happened and that, you know, they're paying attention to it. And we're not seeing that. You know, there was a report recently from Block Club showing that the police who are assigned to these priority details are spending less than half of their time on priority 911 calls, even when they're waiting to be answered, and instead they're pulling people over. Lastly, the inspector general, you know, they reported that CPD isn't. They tried to do an audit of CPD's 911 response times because it's been such an issue. You know, there's lots of reporting, but everybody knows that it's a problem. So they tried to do an audit, and they weren't able to complete that report because CPD is not even making basic records. For less than half of the calls that they receive, are they even logging any response whatsoever? So we don't know what the real response times are, because they're not reporting any response 51% of the time.
Wow.
But we know that it's not good. We know that it needs to be better, and that we need our police to respond to the issues that matter to our community rather than going out there and honestly breaking the law themselves, breaking the Constitution, and getting the city sued. You know, because that's what's happening. The ACLU
we lose a lot of money through suits. We lose a ton of money through suits. Yes, sir. So
there you go.
Okay, so priority number one, at least for you all, is going to be focusing on pretextual stops. Any other issues that you feel are pressing to the district?
Well, and baked into that, reprioritizing on quality of 911 response. I think that's important. I think quality over quantity. But I mean, that's definitely a main focus. Other issues, I mean, well, it's all sort of wrapped up together. I mean, the folks who have more concerns, what we have seen are the, like the stolen Kias and they'll do like an armed robbery spree. Well, they'll hit like a few different locations. So we had some of that definitely.
Okay.
And that's, a concern, but again,
that's a part of some of the larger trends that's going on across the country, though.
Right. There isn't one thing to fix that. There's a lot that you got to look at, or there's a lot of ways to try to help the problem. But I mean, expanding restorative justice is really, we had actually an incredible result in the first ward. Alderman Daniel Espada led an effort. Most of the, they used to be called, what did they used to be called? Was it ceasefire? Ceasefire, right? It used to be called ceasefire. They used the nonviolence, the violence interruption groups had this umbrella ceasefire, and then the state funding sort of changed. And, but now we have Communities Partnering for Peace. Well, we still have all these groups together. But the city usually doesn't fund it. Most of it is state funding, or grants or other things. Alderman Espada got a pilot program for just like about $1 million. He brought also into further east neighborhood, like into Westtown, because they were more west in like Humboldt Park. He brought them over a little bit. And the number of murders went from 4 or 5 to 0 in 1 year. And the number of like shootings and, serious violence incidents also went down like 75-80%.
Nice.
So that's in 1 year. And that's, so that's pretty incredible. So I definitely want to keep expanding on those wins as well.
Okay. That sounds good. So addressing pretextual stops is one of the things that you all are definitely looking forward to do in the 14th district. Speaking of your group in the 14th district, there has been concerns across the city about the district councils and their relationships, a lot of interpersonal issues in the way that we connect with one another. And that could make for difficulty in trying to get some things done. And I'm speaking to this because I learned a lot about your passion at a couple meetings, and there was a little bit of angst, if you will, amongst your group at one point. I don't want to focus on that part so much as I want to focus on how the district councils themselves are operating because of interpersonal issues. So to that end, what do you think we as a district council should be doing when faced with a different train of thought as it relates to what we're bringing to the district council, and how that creates a little bit of contention towards what we need to do in order to get this work done? But again, we are a team, a group, and we are supposed to be working together, but the interpersonal issues does interfere. What do you think we could or should be doing as a district council when we come across issues like that?
Good question. To stall for just a second, I mean, part of it is challenging because of the Open Meetings Act. Where 2 of us on the same district council of 3 people are not supposed to discuss too much business outside of our monthly meetings. So, actually, we're not really supposed to plan those meetings privately, which makes it the sort of not having free communication can make it challenging to have good understanding.
Crazy.
And then, what you see is that people aren't always on the same page when they're coming together, which is in public. So it's a challenging situation. The 19th district is leading efforts to try and give us a couple carve outs to help us out a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, in general, what should we do? This was about the district councilors themselves. I have, I guess grace and professionalism. There may be, I think this is not a partisan position in we don't declare a party when we run, although that doesn't really matter in Chicago because everyone's, a Democrat, even the Republicans, although, all power to the people who are openly Republican, not that I support, but, I don't support either. But, we're not partisan, but that doesn't mean it's not political. We're definitely political, and power is not always about, being neutral or technocratic. So there may be disagreements that may never be solved, and that's sort of a fact. It could be that two people want something and one person wants another, and that isn't going to change. So I don't know, but you have to figure out how to have the meetings work for the community. You gotta be able to have some professionalism. You gotta work together to have the meetings for the community at the end of the day.
Okay.
I don't know. You got some suggestions for me? I'm not the expert on this.
Man, listen,
this is not my question.
Well, listen, I'm trying to figure it out. Like I
said, let me know.
There has been a lot of issues that have arisen on various district councils across the city, right? And I have talked to some folks separately in trying to help. But I think a lot of times it's about the individuals that are involved and are they willing to, like you say, be professional, But also sometimes I think it stems toward the fact of, are you an adult that can do your work? We don't have to like each other to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do as sworn or elected individuals representing the community, And I think a lot of people get that piece lost, and when you put yourself before the community that you were elected to represent, then that's when we don't get what we need accomplished. So speaking of accomplishment, I wanted to know, because you said one of the things that is integral to this position is that we make sure that we are essentially giving the direction to the community commission, making sure that they understand what's going on at the ground level as we connect with the community. And so, because again, you have such a large district and it's very diverse, right? And I do know that you obviously want to focus in on pretextual stops and let that move into other spaces, such as allocation of time and things like that. But there's other things that I think is important because of the larger context. And that is, how do you prioritize the needs and concerns of your constituents while also considering broader citywide issues?
Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge, especially in the fact that these are super part-time, stipends. We're not employees. We're not even, 20 hours a week. We're 20 hours a month. But obviously, a lot of us are putting a lot more than that into it. Folks coming from activism or organizing who, probably weren't paid for most of the work they were doing before. Also, folks who are compensated, that's also important as well. But, there is a lot, and I definitely have been involved in a lot of different aspects, and it's a lot. It's too much. One of the things is just establishing the infrastructure around the district councils because we're brand new. We started with nothing, and so we have to plan how, what are these quarterly meetings that we're going to have? What is the annual meeting? How do we come up with priorities together? so I go to planning committee meetings, to help try to work out those processes. We're starting these working groups now for district counselors across the city to come together on different issues like accountability, public safety, restorative justice, and a policy working group as well. And that's something I'm interested in. One of the issues that thankfully we won citywide was about like arbitration. They were gonna get rid of the police board, and that would have been a big problem because we could have the commission pass all these rules, but if the police aren't going to be held accountable for those rules, then it doesn't really matter what rules you write. Yeah. So that was a big citywide
thing. That real quick about what the arbitration. What exactly is arbitration?
Sure. Arbitration is broadly, it's when you get somebody who's not a lawyer or a judge necessarily. Well, they might be a lawyer, but if you have a disagreement, usually in a contract, an arbitrator tries to settle a disagreement that two parties aren't able to come to terms on. So for Chicago, what we're talking about is we have a collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police, which is the largest bargaining unit for the patrolmen. They're not for the police commanders, but they're for all of the patrolmen. So the FOP, they bargain with the city for their contract. And part of that was that they were trying to have arbitration replace or currently they can use arbitration when they would have a discipline for less than 1 year. If they were going to have like a 30-day or a 3-day or 6 month suspension, they can go to arbitration and appeal that decision. So arbitration is an option that police have to appeal the disciplinary process. And what the controversy was about is they wanted to expand that even to cases where they were meant to be fired or suspended for over 1 year. So these are the most severe cases of, where we're talking about police officers ending someone's life, or possibly something to do with sexual violence, or lying to cover up other crimes, those types of serious things. So it's obviously a very serious issue. Chicago is a city that pays billions of dollars in police misconduct settlements. Every single week, city council is approving, new $1 million payments. And that's real harm. That's just the end result. But the on the ground is that people are being hurt and that they're not being made more safe. And we need to have safety. And this is part of achieving safety for everyone is changing the rewarding positive interactions with our community and not rewarding, harassing our community. So, so arbitration, it's very important that we're able to have accountability for police officers who've, committed the worst offenses and crimes and misconduct. Arbitration has a different standard. The arbitrators don't come from Chicago. They don't have a duty to the city or the residents. They don't have a financial duty or a moral, or that's not their concern. When they're making their decision, it's not based on the victim. It's not based on the community. It's not even based on the police department. It's based on if there are any mitigating factors that will help them to drop the sentence. It's purely based on the rights of the officer. And it's not even at that point about proving the facts of the case. They can defend themselves as much as they can have all the lawyers they want at the police board. They can say that this isn't true. I didn't do this. They can say I'm not guilty all the time in the normal disciplinary process. Arbitration says you've been found wrong. We want to fire you. And then the cop says, actually, even though I killed that person, I have a friend from the suburbs who's going to let me keep my job.
That's crazy. I do know that there was a fight that has been going on for some time, and I'm glad that we won because, again, that would just undermine accountability. Like, what are we here for if we're going to allow things like that? So I know at some point, if it hasn't already started, it's going to be a huge legal process in which the union tries to fight the decision. But hopefully we got better lawyers. You know what I mean? So
I came up with an answer sorry about another local priority. It took me a while to think of it. I'm sorry, but so there's a great community space called the Humboldt Park Solidarity Network, and they operate a free store. And they've been doing this for years, for about 4 years. So, through the pandemic, before the recent migrant crisis we've had, and the different refugees, but there's a new group that set up El Arbol, a free store, more specifically for the present situation. But the Humboldt Park Solidarity Network, this is a community free space where any community group, doing something positive can have the space for free. So there's youth poetry nights, there's gun violence harm reduction, groups, and there's a free store. There's where people can get groceries, they can get clothing, whether it's winter clothes or seasonal stuff. So it's this great spot. Now, unfortunately, they were subject to some police raids, and they were being targeted and harassed on an ongoing basis for a little while, partly because of one of the groups meeting there was the New Era Young Lords. But again, this group was having youth poetry open mics and harm reduction peace circles, practicing restorative justice. But it's just sort of like alarming to the police, I guess. Business Affairs and Consumer Protection team came to one of the youth open mics that they had, assuming that they would find that it was an unlicensed, like, ticketed event, or that there was alcohol, or things like that, alcohol sales or drugs on the premises. They didn't find anything. There was no citation issued as a result of that raid. But it did scare the youth, and they stopped meeting there because they got the message. They said, well, we've been pulled over while we're meeting here. We've had this raid now, so I guess we can't meet here anymore. That was a negative for the community, because this is a peace circle that's, doing, again, violent harm reduction. That's something that we need, and we need it in my district. They were meeting then in Lawndale, but they need it in Lawndale. They also need it in West Humboldt Park.
Yeah, for sure.
And that group as well, when they meet there, they were also opening up the space and helping it to be accessible for the people in the community, to get the groceries and the other clothes and things that they need. So, that was something that was important to the community to reestablish, and, to work with the alderperson, Jesse Fuentes, and talk to the police commander and make sure that, that these youth groups are able to meet and work without being harassed.
Wait, and so was that something that you've recently accomplished in order to get this store back open and running, or you're saying that's an issue you want to address?
It's with the help of Jesse Fuentes, also, working with the police commander as well. We've been able to sort it out. They have resumed the meetings there. Yes.
Oh, okay. Now, the most interesting. So this was actually a question I was going to ask, and so I feel like you just answered it, unfortunately. So if that's the one, then we'll keep moving forward without this question. But in addition to the accomplishment that you just mentioned, is there any other particular accomplishment or project that you're proud of during your time as a district counselor?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was proud, when we passed our first vote was the resolution, against the pretextual traffic stops. I was proud of that. And, I was definitely proud when we beat arbitration. We had to do that twice. City council we had to get 30 votes in city council. And I'm sure there's been other times,
okay.
But
specifically to the 14th district, anything that you all have accomplished or have done?
I mean, the one we talked about there. I mean, to be honest with, right, that is something definitely. I think that I would hold up. Getting the New Era Young Lords to resume their meetings, for youth, for art and harm reduction, but. I mean, there also definitely, been some challenges. Some things are definitely not yet finished. Things are still in the midst as well.
Okay, no worries. I like that one, but again, I had the question loaded up, but you had already answered it, so I wasn't sure if that was like an accomplishment or something you was about to say that you would like to get accomplished. But so it's fine. I just got a couple more questions for you.
We
But
had some events. We had a nice event in Humboldt Park
I was gonna
where
mention
we
that
had
the chili.
free
Yeah,
chili.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
you
was
know
gonna
about
mention
that. Yeah. So on the west side, a bunch of different district counselors and include DeAndre had the hookup with some lawyers to talk to folks about know your rights with when you're stopped by police.
Yeah.
And and we started this series of know your rights workshops. So one of those we had in Humboldt Park, working also with the 12th district and the Cook County Public Defender's Office.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was definitely a good event where we were feeding, we had free chili in the park,
Yeah.
having people
By
come
the
up and
way,
stuff.
you guys kicked that off, so I appreciate y'all for bringing that to my attention and some of the other district counselors on the west side, because that's essentially what that was, like almost a west side collaborative, if you will. So to that end, actually, our next Know Your Rights, which is going to be a combination of the 15th and 25th district, is going to be March 16th. So that's a Saturday from 11 to 2 at Northwest Austin Council, which is
Nice.
5730 West Division. And we're going to actually have the ACLU come out to talk about your rights to protest. And we're also going to have Illinois Network for Pretrial Fairness come out to talk about what that looks like in light of the Safety Act and the no cash bail law. So those two things are happening. So I appreciate you for getting that going, because we just want to make sure we keeping that going and using that as a tool to continue to educate the community on their rights. So
Nice
for that one.
Yeah. Some of the speakers we've had at the district council meetings, those have also felt, like mini wins, but it's always feels good to have a nice speaker come to the meeting, to talk about ShotSpotter or about the pretextual traffic stops. We did have speakers about the pretrial fairness as well. And getting info to the community when people ask questions, and when everybody, says, that was a great speaker, I learned a lot, or when people clap, that's an accomplishment,
Nice. Facts. True indeed. All right. So accomplishments aside, we have 3 years remaining to make some sort of impact, and maybe more if you decide to run again and uphold the position for another 4 years. So to that end, I don't know how many years you got in you to continue to do something like this, but to that end, what do you hope to achieve or accomplish in your role as a district counselor? And it says I put in the coming years, but I want to put overall, like what in your 4 years all together would you like to achieve or accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to combine sort of what I ran on and with some of the things that I've learned, I think 2 really foundational things, that we need to see change. One is taking out the blue wall of silence, sort of the thin blue line. Like the culture has got to change, and there has to be, a lot of things have to change to where police operate a little bit differently. But what does that mean? That means police, typically will lie to protect each other. They see themselves as being very much aligned, almost as if they're a tribe or a gang or something, but like they're on a team and their team is sort of against the people in the community that they're out, patrolling and policing rather than, serving and protecting, really. But so, I think that honesty, police are used, to testify in court. And it's very important, that they can be reliable. And we've seen a lot of discrepancies between things like what officers said around Laquan McDonald and what we saw on video. And a lot of those, so occasionally there's some accountability for maybe like 3 of the officers on that case, but there were more officers involved even in that case, and there were other cases as well. It's rare to get accountability for the offending officer, and it's extremely rare to get accountability for the other officers. The goal isn't just to always be firing everybody. The goal is to change the culture to where, they don't feel that it's necessary for their own well-being and for themselves to carry on in this job to do that. Officers have to be safe to uphold, the best ideals. So that's one. And number two, along the similar lines, I think really the evaluations have to change. The way that police are promoted, like if we want to talk about the incentives and the culture, like that's it. So why are they doing all these stops?
Mm-hmm.
Partly because the commanders are telling them to, but also because that's the way to get promoted to sergeant, is to rack up the number of cases that you have, the number of callers, the number of blue cards or whatever. There isn't a quality model. Again, partly because of the FOP contract, or mostly because of the FOP contract, they're not being evaluated based on how good of a job they're doing. They're not being evaluated based on, are you responding to the 911 calls that are assigned to you? How quickly are you doing that? How good of a job are you doing with those victims or those people with those concerns? That's not what gets them promoted, right? So we can't even act surprised that they're not doing what we want them to do if those aren't the criteria that they have. So we need to have community-based criteria for officer evaluation and advancement. And that can help us to change the culture. You know, what we really want is a place where good cops are welcomed and supported, you know. And I have a cousin who's looking to join the police department, and he's been thinking about it for a number of years. But we have to change the systems that are pushing everybody into doing things, you know, that are not living up to our highest values and are not serving our community. We got to, you know, make it easier for the good cops.
Yeah, understood. Cultural change and community criteria that could be used for evaluation for advancement. Okay, interesting. Those are two things that I myself have not considered, so that's pretty interesting to hear it from you. And to, again, that being that there are 66 of us, if you know you can continue to get more involved in something like that, I think then we ultimately could push for that. So that sounds dope. Definitely some good ideas there. The other thing, so I pretty much wanted to wrap up like this because
I'm so long-winded. Sorry.
No. Not in that way. So I made the reach out to do this particularly because we were responding to some Instagram comments to the last guest that I had, P. Ray, who that's my sister from the Austin community, who's pretty much a conservative and have some very interesting views about a lot of things that happen. Even interesting to myself. I'm like, all right now. So but I'm okay with that because I'm open to everybody's opinion, and I don't challenge them. Like, that's your thought, this is mine, right? And one of the things that came up during this conversation too is that you don't particularly care for either party, right? And as elected officials, and especially if we want to go higher, you got to pick a side. I sit with Congressman Davis, and that's what he always said. But you express that you don't care for either side, and so to that point, you know, and to the point of, you know, sometimes wrestling with P. Ray, I was just curious as to, you know, what are your thoughts on politics? Like, where do you consider yourself? You know, what is it about American politics and the systems that we currently have in place do you accept, and what do you think needs to change?
Well, you know, modern police come from two places: slave catcher patrols and strike breakers. And, you know, to a degree, that's still their function. Like, we know from the leaked information or what came out from Nixon, or what actually his cabinet admitted to, was that they created the war on drugs specifically to fight the Black Power movement, to fight Black advancement. And that, you know, they also similarly were fighting the anti-war, you know, demonstrators against Vietnam, you know, hippies and stuff. So yeah, what is my, I mean, look, I'm anti-capitalist because, and I understand people who want a business. Why does anybody, want their own business? It's because they don't want to be an employee. It's because they know what it's like to be exploited and oppressed, and they don't want that. But I think that we can and we need to do better than a system where you have to fight your fellow person. I care about my fellow person. I don't want to take that next level up if the only way to do that is by stepping on somebody and grinding them down deeper and deeper into the dirt. Does that make sense?
Most definitely. I hear you.
Yeah. I don't, my idea of success for myself doesn't include anything that isn't sustainable for the advancement of everybody else around me and in my community.
Mm-hmm.
And about, so I did, I'm always jumping in hot or whatever, but the two things with P. Ray, or I'll speak about Ray Lopez because he's an elected official.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know your friend, and that's, not even my place, but Ray Lopez, he was trying to repeal the sanctuary city status.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say that part of the reason there's some confusion around that is because, our Democrats in office in the city, I like the local ones a lot more than the national ones, but the mayor and other folks in the city, we're talking about the sanctuary status. Carlos or, other aldermen in my area, we're talking about it. And that's the legacy of Harold Washington, right? Brandon said the legacy of Harold Washington, he gave us sanctuary status. We have these values to uphold. And Ray Lopez was saying, let's end sanctuary status, because I don't want to take care of anybody. That's not my job. So let's end it. What sanctuary status actually means is that ICE agents, federal immigration customs enforcement agents, are not patrolling and kidnapping people on our streets, which they used to, which does happen in places that don't have sanctuary status. What that means for us as district councilors, if we did repeal sanctuary status, it would not change any funding from migrants to the South or West Side to longtime Black residents. It would not have anything to do with the budget or any programs or anything for Black people or anyone else in Chicago. What would happen if we repealed sanctuary status is that any brown person, anybody who anybody thinks might be a Latino person, could be targeted at any time. It means that anybody who could be worried about that is not able to call CPD without fearing that they or anybody they know is going to be kidnapped that day, taken to some shelter, and so it would increase crime, not just crime committed and suffered by Latino people. It would increase crime for the entire city. It would make it dangerous for any law enforcement to be anywhere near any person that could be seen as Latino, because they can call ICE basically and deport them. But it doesn't matter if you're not actually undocumented. It doesn't matter if you're a legal resident. That's to be determined later, right? That's you have to prove that. You're not arrested once you're found guilty. You're arrested at the start of it. So then does everyone have to carry their papers around with them? Is this Nazi Germany? Is that what we're going to? Right. So it would waste our resources. It would prevent a lot of people from reporting crimes or from actually, sharing information. It would create a lot of hostility. And what we need is to come together, both to address crime and to actually uplift each other and take care of each other. Unity is what we need, not division, not hate.
I hear that. I receive that. All right.
And at the same time, he opposes Bring Chicago Home, and that is the very thing that's going to house longtime Black residents on the South and West Side. So, when he's pretending that Sanctuary City is what's taking away those resources, actually, the same people who want Black and brown people fighting are the same people who don't want to take care of anybody.
Right. Yeah, I hear what you said. That anti-capitalist sentiment is shared amongst a lot of folks that do this type of work, for people that are advocates for other people, because obviously, we are standing up for people that sometimes won't stand up for themselves. We're looking at a system that is, thoroughly broken, and so there's a lot of ways in which you can take this and look at it, and a lot of sides you can stand on,
getting stormy now.
Yeah.
I'm not a Trump fan. I'm definitely not. I mean, Biden is committing genocide right now, and I hate that. Some of my relatives, had to flee the anti-Semitic pogroms in Odessa, in Ukraine and Russia, 100 years ago. But it kills me, to know that we're committing a genocide against Palestinians today, and that Biden has vetoed a ceasefire 3 times in the United Nations. So, we're directly responsible. And I feel that every day. I'm crying all the time seeing the horrible things going on.
Crazy.
Yeah, I forget why I brought that up.
No, I know, because we brought up Trump. That was another thing too.
I saw. Yeah, I mean, Trump is also bad. Like, they're not the same person, but they are 2 sides of the same coin, right? There are definitely differences, but neither one of them is good enough for us. Neither one of them is what we need.
Oh my God! So you can say that. You can say that. Man, you can say that 3 times again, man. For real, man. I'm so disappointed in these choices. To me, American politics are at an all-time low. I mean, and that's not even just with these 2 candidates that they're thrusting in front of us. I mean, it's just everything that we're choosing to indulge in as leaders is like this is what we've become as Americans, and everything is dropping precipitously. Our education rates, our life expectancy rates.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's sad, man. We're in a sad state of affairs.
And is it like that, in any of the other major countries? Maybe just in the UK, because they're also, kind of shitty like us in a lot of ways. But you look at the 30 advanced countries or whatever, 28 of them are doing fantastic, right? Don't have any of the problems that we're having.
Right.
There's a lot we could be doing differently that we don't, just because rich people are in control,
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to see us elevated once again. I mean, obviously America is still a great and powerful country. Love being here, wouldn't want to be in any other place in the world. But I mean, I want to see us get back to a space where we're actually leading innovation and creativity and art and culture and uplifting our people and making sure that everybody is getting whatever that they deserve or work for. Now, for me, I'm a person who believes in the work. I believe you get what you work for. Does that mean that you should be able to stand on the heads of people because you got $1 trillion in your pockets? I don't necessarily agree with that, but I also believe that you get what you work for in this lifetime. And so I do want to see everybody get exactly what they deserve and work for. But I want to see a return to all of those things, man, where it proves once again that America is a powerful country because of the people and not because of just these few individuals that have a purse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah.
Man,
can I throw out a couple things on the political question? Going back, right? So Nancy Pelosi, they're 2 sides of the same coin because they're both the capitalist party. Essentially, they're both serving the same people, which is not the people who vote for them. It's the people that donate high amounts of money.
Right.
There was that Princeton study that showed that America's almost an oligarchy. That the issues that the people care about don't get passed if the rich don't want them. Right. And and also, so Nancy Pelosi said, we're the party of capitalism. They don't actually care about representing who the Democrats are. They are committed to their values, and their values aren't that different from Republicans. I think they're so similar, and that's why they have to create a lot of these tense divisions. Like, they're purposefully creating like culture wars to mask how similar they are on the economy. But at the end, Also, the crazy thing was that Hillary Clinton chose Trump, and that the Democrats worked to make him win. And that's what her emails showed. The DNC leaders chose to elevate Trump as a Pied Piper candidate because they wanted the lesser evil argument. They wanted to say, who are you going to vote for, Hillary or this bad man?
Right.
Why wouldn't Hillary just give the people what they were demanding? Why wouldn't she give us health care? She would have won if she would have given us health care, right?
They should have let us feel the burn because that's who we all wanted.
And that too, the Democratic Party was sued and in court for nominating Hillary instead of Bernie. And what they said was they didn't try to prove, well, she deserved it. This is how Hillary deserved it. This is how she won. All they said was, we're a private corporation. We can appoint whoever we want. It doesn't matter what anybody else wants. It doesn't matter how many Democratic registered voters wanted Bernie. It doesn't matter. It's our decision, and we made it. So, you know, it's not, the Democratic Party is anything but democratic. And yeah, they don't represent black people. They don't represent any of their constituents except the really wealthy donors.
Yeah.
But it's not the Republicans are obviously the same. You know, they're no
right.
You know, the other side of the grass might look greener, but it's the same field.
Yeah, man. It's a dire situation. You know, this two-party system, but
there's
not
good news.
Really, but not
which
really.
is, you know, we can work as a community and we can organize for the things that we need independently of what the president is saying. And, you know, and like Nixon didn't campaign on civil rights, right? We know that, right? But he was forced to act, wasn't he? Because of what the people did. So, you know, we can always act. We don't have to wait for someone to save us.
Facts. I like that. You know what? That's probably a good place to put a pin on it. We don't have to wait to act. We can always act. We don't have to wait for somebody to save us. Love that. So I want to give you the ISO screen. That means just you by yourself. You can say anything you'd like to do, anything that you'd like for the folks to know, anything in addition that you haven't spoke on that you'd like to share, whatever, man. So pretty much the floor is yours. I'm going to take myself out, man, give you the big screen and, you know, go and do your
thing. All right. Thanks so much, you know, for checking this out. Thank you, DeAndre. I really enjoyed that. Appreciated it. You know, great questions. Hope I wasn't too all over the place. Yeah, so the 14th District Council, we have our monthly meetings every month on the first Saturday at 1 p.m. And we rotate between the libraries in the area. If you just Google 14th District Council, you can see our annual schedule for all our meetings. But yeah, first Saturday of the month at 1 p.m. And wherever you are in Chicago, you can sign the petition for the Free to Move campaign to end the pretextual traffic stops. Because, you know, we need the police to answer 911 calls rather than just, you know, harassing black drivers. You can go to freetomove.com or you Google a Free to Move Chi, Free to Move Chicago Coalition. Yeah, I'd say that's about it. Check out Free to Move Coalition and check out the 14th District Council or your own district council, wherever you are. You know, Google district councils and then you know, find your meeting because they're online. All right. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
No, appreciate you, David. Now, thank you for coming through and sharing this time with me, educating the folks on the district councils and a little bit about your background and yourself. I appreciate it because I like to learn more about people. I think we cast aspersions and make decisions about people that we have no ideas about. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it just takes a conversation. So it was super dope learning more about your background and your history. And like, you're legit passionate about this for good reason. And you're very well studied and knowledgeable about what you're talking about. And I can always appreciate that. And you got a person that said good night to you. Thank you, Miss Brown, for tapping in with us. And everybody else that listened and watched. Appreciate y'all. Until next time, like I like to say in closing, class dismissed.